The basic shape drawing tools inside Illustrator form the foundation in which you can create impressive designs. So today we'll spend a few minutes understanding how they work. Alright, so inside Adobe Illustrator, and before I start, some things to set up. First, I'll press the letter D on the keyboard for the default white fill and black stroke, and I can see that at the bottom of the toolbar. I'm also going to press the / on the keyboard to set the fill color to none. Now, to easily move, rotate, duplicate, and scale objects by dragging the object or a handle under the View menu, I'm going to show the bounding box. And now we are ready to dive into understanding how the shape tools work. The rectangular tool is the first shape tool. Inside the toolbar, I'll click and hold to get to the tool or use the keyboard shortcut to select it. Then inside the artboard, I'll start drawing a free-form rectangle shape and then release. And here I have several options as long as the bounding box is turned on. For example, I can position the rectangle shape to a different location by dragging the center point. I can drag a side handle like this one or this one to squeeze the shape. I can drag the bottom or top handle and scale the shape vertically. Now, still with the mouse held down, to constrain the shape proportionally, I press and hold the Shift key, and as I drag the corner handle, I keep the aspect ratio. Now, moving the cursor slightly outside the shape, like right here, then I can rotate the shape, and as I do, I also get an indication of the angle of rotation. If I want to constrain the angle to 45 degrees increments, all I have to do is press the Shift key and start rotating. So I'll go ahead and delete that using the backspace or delete key on the keyboard. To constrain the size of a rectangle and create a perfect square, I'll press and hold the Shift key on the keyboard. If I release the Shift key prematurely, then I return to the free-form rectangle shape. In other words, I need to keep pressing and holding the Shift key to create the perfect square. I'll delete that, and I'm going to create a shape from the center out. I will position my cursor at the intersection of these two center guides. I'll start dragging by pressing Alt-Option on the keyboard and draw from the center out. When I add the Shift key into the mix, from the center out, I get a perfect square. Once again, I'll delete that, and here's another great shortcut if I want to reposition the shape while I'm drawing. I press and hold the Alt-Shift, Option-Shift. I'll start drawing from the center out and use the spacebar at the same time. The drawing operation gets suspended, and this way I can position the shape to the desired location. I'll release the spacebar and continue drawing. Once again, using Alt-Shift, Option-Shift, I'll add the spacebar into the mix to reposition the rectangular shape, release, and continue drawing from the center out. To specify dimensions, I'll click once inside the artboard and enter the width and height values in the Properties panel. So for example, I'll set the width to 200 pixels and the height to 200 pixels and then click OK. Another option using the rectangle tool is rounding the corners. I'll start drawing a perfect square using the keyboard shortcuts from the center out and release. Notice the live corners, these circular widgets that we can use to round corners by the same amount, and the shape becomes a rounded rectangle. Another option is to double-click on one of these live corners, and that brings up the transform panel. Here I can set the corner radius independently by breaking the chain icon. For example, I'll set the top left corner radius to 15 pixels. I'll set the top right corner radius numerically to 60 pixels, and also change the corner type from round to inverted round. For the bottom left border radius, I'll set that numerically to 120 pixels and change the corner type from round to chamfer. So many great options here, all with using the rectangle tool. Another frequently used shape tool is the ellipse tool, with similar functions as the rectangle tool, but also with some additional ones. From the toolbar, I click and hold to get to the ellipse tool, or use the keyboard shortcut to select it, and inside the artboards, I'll start drawing a free-form elliptical shape. I'll delete that using the backspace or the delete key on the keyboards, and to constrain the size of an elliptical shape and create a circle, I'll press and hold the Shift key. When I release that while I'm dragging, then I'll return to an oval shape, which means I need to keep pressing the Shift key the entire time to create a circle. I'll delete that as well, and now to create an ellipse from the center out, I will position the cursor at their intersection of these two center guides. I'll start dragging by pressing Alt Option on the keyboards and draw from the center out. When I add the Shift key into the mix, from the center out, I get a circle. Remember to release the mouse button before you release any modifiers. Similar to the rectangle tool, using the keyboard shortcuts Alt Shift Option Shift, when I add the spacebar into the mix, the drawing operation gets suspended, and this way I can position the circle to the desired location. With the help of the bounding box, I can drag the side handles to squeeze the circle. Under the Edit menu, I will undo that, and to scale the circle, I'll drag from either the top or bottom handles like so. To rotate the circle, I'll move the cursor slightly outside of it, rotate it, and as I do, I get an indication of the angle of rotation. If I want to constrain the angle to 45-degree increments, I'll press the Shift key and start rotating. In addition, from the center point, I can move the circle around to a different location. The ellipse tool gives us another great option, creating pie shapes. I'll start creating a circle from the center out using Alt-Shift-Option-Shift on the keyboard and give it a fill color of my choice using the swatches panel. Notice this circular widget. When I drag this, I can create a pie, and that gives me access to another circular widget that I can drag in the opposite direction. Another option is to drag one widget past the other, and then I will end up with a wedge. Now up in the control bar, I also have access to the shape's numerical controls by clicking on the shape properties. For example, I'll set the location of the pie start angle to 120 degrees, and for the pie end angle, I'll set that to 60 degrees. Another option here is to invert the pie to a wedge or convert the wedge by clicking on this double arrow icon. A great example here is to duplicate the pie shape by dragging the center point using the keyboard shortcuts Alt-Shift-Option-Shift. Inside the swatches panel, I'll add a fill color so I can see the difference between these two. Back on the Shape Properties panel, I'll click to invert the pie, and that gives me a wedge sitting above the pie shape. Now, to reset both shapes to circles, using the Selection tool, I click on each shape to bring up the circular widgets, and instead of dragging one of them, I'll just double-click on it for both the pie shape and the wedge. To access the Polygon tool from the toolbar, I will long press on whichever shape tool is present, and from the Flat menu, I'll select the Polygon tool. I'll start drawing a polygon from the center out without pressing the Alt-Option key on the keyboard, and that defaults to 6 sides, forming a hexagon. With the mouse still pressed, tapping the up arrow key on the keyboard will increase the number of sides, and tapping the down arrow key will remove sides from the polygon. I'll delete that and draw an upright polygon from the center out using the Shift key on the keyboard. With the mouse still pressed, I can also add the spacebar into the mix. The drawing operation gets suspended, and this way I can position the polygon to the desired location. Now in the event I release the mouse button, on the right edge of the bounding box, I get this diamond widget that allows me to change the number of sides. Dragging all the way upwards reduces the number of sides to 3, and dragging all the way downwards, it increases the number of sides to 11. To rotate the polygon, I'll move the cursor slightly beyond one of these handles and drag to rotate it, and as I do, I get an indication of the angle of rotation. If I want to constrain the angle to 45-degree increments, then I'll press the Shift key and start rotating. I also have the option to round all the corners by the same amount, dragging the circular widget. Double-clicking on the Live Corner widget will bring up the Transform panel, and here I can increase or decrease the polygon side counts. I can change the polygon angle, the corner radius interactively as well, and the corner type from round to chamfer. I'll delete that and draw another polygon shape upright using the Shift key on the keyboard. I can stretch out the polygon shape from the side handles, and if I want to stretch the shape with respect to its center, then I'll press and hold the Alt option on the keyboard. If I add the Shift key into the mix, then I can stretch the shape proportionally. In this case, I'll stretch the polygon shape from the side handle, and up in the control bar, I click on the Shape Properties. Here I'll make sides equal to restore the shape as a polygon. To customize polygon dimensions, I click once inside the artboard, set the radius value, the number of sides, and click OK. To access the Star tool from the toolbar, I'll long press on whichever shape tool is present, and from the Flat menu, I'll select the Star tool. I'll start drawing from the center out to create a 5-pointed star without pressing the Alt Option key on the keyboard. To change the number of sides, with the mouse still pressed, tapping the up arrow key on the keyboard will increase the number of sides, or tapping the down arrow key will do the opposite and decrease the number of sides. I will delete that and draw from the center out an upright start shape with 8 sides by tapping the up arrow key and using the Shift key on the keyboard. Now, if I want to align sides with each other, I'll press and hold the Alt key or the Option key on the keyboard. With the mouse still pressed, I can also add the spacebar into the mix. The drawing operation gets suspended, and this way I can position the star to the desired location. I'll delete that and draw another start shape from the center out. Now, holding the Control key or the Command key locks the inner radius, so I can make the start point spiky or shorter by moving the outer points towards the insides. Now, here's a great tip. To reset the Start tool, first I'll delete the existing shape. I will click anywhere on the artboard to bring up the Star Panel properties, and here I'll set the number of points to 5. I'll click to accept the changes, and then delete the start shape that follows. I'll start drawing a new start shape from the center out, and by pressing and holding the Control Alt or Command Option on the keyboard, the Start tool gets reset. To create a start shape numerically, I'll click anywhere on the artboard, enter the number of points, and set 2 radius values, one for the outer points and another for the inner points, and then click OK.